When most of us imagine dying, we picture a pretty straightforward binary. You take your final breath, and you immediately drop through a trapdoor into a lake of fire, or you ride an express elevator straight up into the clouds. But look closer at the texts of the world's major religions, and you find a very different system. Getting to heaven or hell usually involves complex transit logistics, waiting zones, and spiritual tests long before you reach any final destination. Take Islam, for example. The physical process immediately strips away earthly status. The body is washed and wrapped in a simple white cloth called a kafan. A billionaire and a beggar enter the earth looking exactly the same. The burial happens quickly, often within 24 hours. The community gathers for the janazah, a unique funeral prayer. There is no bowing and no prostration. They only stand, asking Allah for mercy on the deceased. Because once the dirt settles, the real test begins. The grave acts as an active waiting room, a barrier state called barzakh. Here, two angels named Munkar and Nakir appear to give you a critical 3-question quiz. Pass, and your grave expands with a window to paradise. Fail, and it closes in around you. The idea of a holding zone carries over into Judaism, but with a surprising twist on punishment. In Jewish texts, hell, called Gehenna, is almost never permanent. It operates like a spiritual washing machine. The maximum time a soul spends there is 12 months, cleansing away earthly mistakes before moving on. You see the shared DNA between Judaism and Islam right at the gravesite. Jewish custom also demands rapid burial, washing the body, a plain white shroud, and a plain wooden coffin, ensuring a humble return to the earth. Catholic Christianity has its own version of this transitional space, purgatory. If a soul is destined for heaven but isn't entirely pure yet, they go here first. It acts as a spiritual hospital where the soul is slowly healed and prepared for paradise. But Catholics have a unique mechanic. The living can actually intervene. Your family on earth can perform good deeds, offer masses, and pray for you, actively shortening the time you spend recovering in that spiritual hospital. Orthodox Christians map out an even more specific path. For 40 days after death, the soul goes on an intense aerial journey. It visits places from its life and passes through toll houses, where it is rigorously questioned about specific sins, like pride or lying, while the living pray for its safe passage. Across all these traditions, suffering after death rarely equals eternal damnation right out of the gate. It is a calculated, necessary preparation required before a soul can handle the sheer intensity of eternal peace. Now, step out of the Middle East and head to India, where the entire architecture of death flips. In Hinduism, your soul, the Atma, never actually dies. When your body wears out, your soul simply moves into a new one. You are essentially changing clothes, and the tailor is your accumulated karma. Because the body is just a temporary vessel, it is cremated. A funeral pyre physically purifies the remains and breaks the soul's attachment to the physical form it just left behind. The final earthly step is to collect the remaining ashes and scatter them into a sacred river, with the Ganges being the most holy. Once released, your soul enters samsara, a massive cosmic loop. Your karma drops you into one of 14 different temporary realms. You might earn a vacation in a heavenly realm, or suffer the consequences in a hellish one. You might even come back as a human, an animal, or a plant. But none of these stops are permanent. Heaven and hell are just tourist destinations on an exhausting, infinite merry-go-round. The true, ultimate goal is moksha, becoming pure enough to snap the cycle completely and never be born again. Buddhism takes that cycle of rebirth and pulls the rug out from under it. Their texts argue there is no permanent soul to begin with. Think of a candle being used to light a second candle. The new flame is linked to the first, but it is not the exact same fire. What transfers isn't your identity, it's your consciousness. Tibetan Buddhism breaks down the space between those flames. They describe the bardo, an intense 49-day transition period. Here, the consciousness is bombarded with terrifying, wrathful visions. But the trick is realizing these monsters aren't real. They are projections of your own frightened mind. To help the deceased realize this, monks will sit near the body and read directly from the Book of the Dead. They are acting as verbal guides, shouting directions into the void to help the consciousness navigate the illusions. Nirvana represents the absolute end of craving and the extinction of the illusion of self. Like a single drop of water finally dissolving back into the vast ocean, the journey itself simply concludes. All these concepts, judgment, bridges, and the ultimate defeat of evil, have roots reaching back to one of the oldest known religions in the world, Zoroastrianism. Emerging in ancient Persia, they held earth and fire as profoundly sacred. To avoid polluting them, they built raised structures called Towers of Silence, allowing vultures to cleanly consume the dead and return the matter to nature. On the fourth day after death, the soul arrives at the Chinvat Bridge for judgment. There, you meet your own conscience, physically manifested as an entity called Dana. If you lived well, she is a beautiful guide. If you lived wickedly, she is a terrifying monster. The bridge responds to your life's choices. For the righteous, the path widens into an easy, massive highway leading to the House of Song. For the wicked, it narrows down to the sharp edge of a sword, dropping them into the House of Lies. The razor-thin bridge over hell appears centuries later in the Islamic concept of the Sirat. It is one example of how these ancient Persian mechanics of judgment reappeared to influence the theology of later traditions. Zoroastrianism differs from many younger faiths in its finality. Hell is temporary. Eventually, the force of darkness is expected to be destroyed entirely. The tradition culminates in Frashokereti. The dead are physically resurrected, reuniting body and soul to inhabit a universe where suffering and death no longer exist. To get there, every soul must face a final purification. A cosmic river of molten metal will pour across the earth, washing over all of humanity. To the righteous who lived truthfully, the texts say this liquid fire feels like bathing in warm milk. But for the wicked, it burns away their impurities until they too are cleansed. Whether a soul is scrubbing its sins in a 12-month washing machine, burning off karma over 1,000 lifetimes, or wading through a river of molten metal, humanity's oldest faiths point toward the same hope. Death is a gauntlet, but it ultimately leads to a universe restored.